Reports that China is developing a new missile system known as the Fractional Orbital Bombardment System, or FOBS, have raised concern about China's growing military capabilities and the implications for the US. The story goes that China used a Long March rocket to send an incredibly maneuverable, nuclear-capable glider into orbit, allowing it to approach its targets at hypersonic speeds. In today's video, we'll discuss what FOBs are, what their capabilities are, and more. According to the Financial Times, China may have tested an orbital bombardment system last summer, which has led Western defense analysts to believe Beijing has developed a new military weapon. According to the story, China used a Long March rocket to send an incredibly flexible, nuclear-capable glider into orbit, allowing it to approach its targets at hypersonic speeds. If this news story is accurate, it shows that China is making rapid progress in building weapons that can bypass existing anti-ballistic missile defenses to a substantial extent. This type of long-range missile may carry nuclear or non-nuclear warheads. So what is FOBS exactly? To be sure, the Fractional Orbital Bombardment System, FOBS, is not a Chinese discovery. FOBS was created in the 1960s by scientists and engineers in the former Soviet Union. It entails launching a nuclear bomb into a lower low Earth orbit, roughly 150 kilometers above ground, where it will float above the Earth before deorbiting over the target. Because the shortest path of a missile launched from any place in the Soviet Union, during the Cold War anyway, would be presumably in the Northern Hemisphere, the Soviets were inspired by the US's then dominant missile warning network, which had all of its observation stations oriented north. The concept behind FOBS is to place a warhead in a stable orbit that deorbits over the target. It will complete a circle if the target and launch point are aligned and the warhead continues to go around. The Earth moves throughout this, so it's more of a spiral than a ring, but the horizontal movement is countered in such a manner that the warhead still hits the target. The important point is that the missile may be flown straight to the target, or it can be flown the other way around the Earth and still reach the target from the opposite direction, over the South Pole rather than the North Pole, where practically all of North America's early warning systems are aimed. If the launch included a fractional orbital bombardment system, it's a throwback to the Cold War, since it may circumvent early warning radars used by countries like the United States to track ballistic missiles. The majority of nuclear-tipped intercontinental ballistic missiles fly to the north. The Northern Hemisphere is home to the United States, Russia, China, and most of the other nuclear powers. The Arctic Circle is the quickest and most direct route for one nation to attack another. As a result, ICBMs launch north and attack their targets from that direction. As a result, the United States, Russia, and China have all turned their long-range early warning radars northward. More importantly, the warhead could stay in orbit for days or months, generating an EMP pulse that launches an assault when the weapon deorbits and hits its target or just explodes in orbit. In some ways, the FOBS, when paired with the glider, resembles a reusable spacecraft. Thanks to the US updating its early warning systems to incorporate space-based monitoring for missile heat signatures, the Soviets never constructed this weapon. Having said that, we are unaware that numerous governments throughout the world, including the United States and Russia, are now striving to construct such a system. However, the Financial Times released a report on October 17th that has put the cat among the pigeons in the intelligence community. China created and tested a FOBS in August of last year. China, on the other hand, disputed allegations that it had tested an orbital weapon, claiming instead that it had just tested a space plane. According to the article, a missile developed by China's Defense Department reached a top speed of 33,800 kilometers an hour, more than 27 times the speed of sound, and circled the globe once before dropping on a target in China, missing it by only 40 kilometers. Because the vehicle went so rapidly, this weapon is classified as a hypersonic FOBS, making it even more difficult to track and intercept. According to Taylor Fravel, a professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and a specialist on China's nuclear weapons, hypersonic glide vehicles travel at lower trajectories and may maneuver in flight, making them difficult to identify and kill. FOBs, on the other hand, may not be any more beneficial than traditional intercontinental ballistic missiles. According to missile specialists, Given the increased use of satellites and ground and atmospheric sensors, ICBMs, like FOBS, can be launched from one continent and hit a target on another, but they don't go into orbit. Instead, ICBMs fly in a parabolic path, reaching altitudes of up to 1,200 kilometers before dropping on the target. Instead, ICBMs follow a parabolic trajectory and have a missile with a minimum range of 5,500 kilometers. That is primarily designed for the delivery of nuclear weapons. Conventional, chemical, and biological weapons can also be delivered with different degrees of efficiency, although they have never been used on an ICBM. Numerous independently targetable re-entry vehicles, MIRVs, are common in current designs, allowing a single missile to carry multiple warheads, each of which can strike a separate target. The only countries that have ICBMs are India, Russia, the United States, North Korea, China, and the UK and France. Modern intercontinental ballistic missiles often carry multiple independent targetable re-entry vehicles, each with its nuclear warhead, allowing a single missile to reach several targets. The need for MIRV arose from the Strategic Arms Limitation Treaties, which set limits on the number of launch vehicles as well as the continuously diminishing size and weight of current warheads. It's also been shown to be a quick fix for proposed anti-ballistic missile deployments. Most ABM system ideas have been deemed unworkable since it's significantly cheaper to add more warheads to an existing missile system than to create an ABM system capable of shooting down the additional warheads. Now back to the FOBS. While the US Space Force's space-based infrared system would still detect a launch, the FOBS may elude the country's ballistic missile defense system. While the US Space Force's space-based infrared system would still detect a launch, the FOBS may elude the country's ballistic missile defense system. That is one of the FOBS' few remaining advantages is the possibility of defeating the BMD and striking targets on US soil. This is why the Chinese test is likely to have alarmed the United States. The Chinese state-run media outlet Global Times released an editorial in which it stated, "It is meaningless to discuss the credibility of the FT report, but it is important to note that the unstoppable trend that China is narrowing the gap with the US in some key military technologies as China is continuously developing its economic and technological strength. China doesn't need to engage in an arms race with the US. It is capable of weakening the US's overall advantages over China by developing military power at its own pace." The test is also seen as a signal that the United States should not believe it can strike China and expect its BMD to shield it from reprisal. So you're probably wondering if the FOBS can be detected, and if so, how? A satellite deorbiting to land or fly low over your area, which is generally too late, might be the first hint of a FOBS strike. A FOBS space vehicle will be detected by the US Missile Warning System in low Earth orbit. Such Chinese FOBS will be picked up by radars looking south in North America. Over the horizon, the Jindalee Operational Radar Network in Australia can detect FOBS launches in China to some extent. South American allies may also let the US military come up with early warning systems in their countries to track the non-parabolic trajectories of a Chinese FOBS glider arriving from the South Pole. Once interceptor missiles have been discovered, they can be launched from many directions at once, boosting the odds of a successful intercept. What does this FOBS test in China signify for India? Even the most steadfast are challenged by the word future in the context of Sino-India ties. Despite New Delhi's best efforts, the Chinese government has failed to settle the boundary issue for decades. And last year, the PLA invaded Galway, culminating in the worst border confrontation between India and China in decades. If there is a genuine possibility of an enemy preemptive attack, exceptional payloads like FOBS that need massive, silo-based rockets are less than ideal. Furthermore, China's FOBS are not exclusive to India. Nonetheless, China's FOBS capacity would be another obstacle for India to overcome since it would allow the PLA command to shift additional resources. The RLV-TD reusable launch vehicle prototype has previously been constructed by the Indian Space Research Organization. A spaceplan-capable variation of this launch vehicle must be created. A GSLV launch vehicle may launch the space aircraft into orbit. Not only might such a space plane be used to test surveillance and espionage equipment, but it could also be used to deliver weapons from space. So, how do you feel about this crazy weaponry? Let us know what you think in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.